Have you ever stopped to ask yourself, who's really driving my life right now? Am I firmly behind the wheel, making turns, navigating traffic, and sweating a little bit about the responsibility of it all? Or maybe I'm riding shotgun, giving thoughts, suggestions, or ideas, but having kind of minimal control. Maybe I'm that backseat driver. I am stuck complaining, suggesting, but knowing that I have very little control over the outcome. Or, worst of all, maybe I'm stuck in the trunk. I have no idea what's ahead of me or behind me, and I feel completely out of control in my life. Hi, I'm Dr. Laurie Bruce. I'm a clinical psychologist and mindfulness coach and host of the podcast From Both Sides of the Couch, where I talk about all things related to mental health from both the perspective of a psychologist and a client in my own therapy. Today, we're going to be exploring what does it really mean to take responsibility for your own life. Take a moment to picture your favorite car. It could be a fancy sedan or a rugged SUV. Just picture your favorite car. We're going to use this car as a metaphor for how to be responsible for your own life, with every seat describing a different level of responsibility. Let's begin with the driver's seat. When you are in the driver's seat of your own car, you see the whole road. You see what is up ahead. You get to decide where you want to go, how fast you want to get there. You can decide if you want to drive the highways or the back roads. You are in charge. However, this level of responsibility can be nerve-wracking. You feel the pressure of making the right decisions, of steering clear of accidents, which could hurt yourself or even other people. The driver's seat is the hardest seat to be in because the responsibility is entirely yours. But the truth is, the only way to fully live your life is to take responsibility for it and to claim that driver's seat. Taking responsibility doesn't mean you have to know everything or that you never ever make mistakes. It means that you're willing to sit in that uncomfortable place where the power and the risk are both yours. This is where true growth lies. Now let's slide over to the front passenger seat. This is the seat of influence. You can see where you are going and how fast you're driving. You're not in charge, but you do get to share your thoughts. It's comfortable. You can see the road, but you don't have the burden of holding the wheel. The passenger seat is where many of us sit when we're letting someone else make big choices. Maybe it's a partner or your boss, or even cultural expectations that we grew up with. We get to make suggestions, we might even feel helpful, but we don't get the final say. Being in the front passenger seat can feel safer than the driver's seat. There might even be many situations in your life where you recognize that you aren't as good of a driver as someone else, and it makes the most sense for that person to be the driver. For example, maybe you're in the front passenger seat when it comes to your family's finances. Let's say your spouse is an accountant and just better with numbers and planning than you are. You might decide it's actually smarter to be in the passenger seat. However, just know that this comes with a cost. You ultimately aren't fully in charge. Your spouse could make financial choices that you truly disagree with. And think about how many women are actually in the dark when it comes to their financial lives. I'm a member of several divorce support groups for women over 50, and I can't tell you how many of these women express fear and anxiety over never having worked outside the home, never even having their own credit card or access to the family bank accounts. How terrifying that must be to be left by your spouse and being completely in the dark for so many years about your finances. So many women actually stay in unhappy and abusive marriages for this very reason. They feel completely in the dark about how to pay for their new single life. So it's important to recognize where you sit in this car and if it is in your best interest to do so. Now let's take a look at the backseat. We know this rule. The person who doesn't quite see the road, but they have plenty of opinions. Slow down, turn left, you're going too fast. From the back seat, you can complain, you can suggest, you can give all sorts of suggestions about what to do, but whether or not it gets done is not up to you. You can be shouting all sorts of shitty advice and no worries, it's not on you. You might not even know it's shitty. You don't feel the immediacy of the road the way that the driver does. You are a few steps removed. The danger of backseat driving is that sometimes you are lulled into thinking that you know more than you actually do. When we're in the back seat, we may think we know the best way to go, but how can we? We're not the ones holding the wheel or using the brake. Another danger of living in the back seat is that it feeds resentment. When you don't have control, you feel the frustration of things not going the way you want to. Yet it's an easy seat to sit in. I can bitch all day about how it's not going the way that I want, but I don't actually have to stress about whether or not my decisions are correct. I just get to bitch about it. Finally is the trunk. This is the seat of total disempowerment. You don't see where you're going. You don't even get to offer any suggestions. However, you know you can't be blamed for any decision that is made. Many people live like this every day. They feel tossed around by life, by circumstance, by what other people demand of them. The trunk is the place of helplessness. Sometimes trauma or repeated experiences of disempowerment put us there. And sometimes we crawl into the trunk ourselves because responsibility just feels unbearable. But here's the truth. Living in the trunk may feel safer in the moment, but it also strips us of choice, of agency, and even joy. So how do we start to take on more responsibility for our own lives? First of all, remember that taking responsibility is not about blaming yourself for everything that has ever happened to you. You can be in the trunk because of things that were never your fault, like childhood trauma or abusive relationships. Those things absolutely lead us to believe that we should stay in the trunk where it's safe. Personal responsibility is not about blame. We are not to blame for the things that happened to us in the past. However, we are the only ones in the world who can change our present and our future. You don't control everything, but you do control how you show up today. You do control whether or not you're going to grab the wheel, offer helpful advice, or stay quiet in the back seat. Taking responsibility is about recognizing that while you didn't choose the road you started on, you can choose where you steer from here. How do we actually step into that driver's seat? Here are 3 practices to consider. Number 1, self-honesty without criticism. Acknowledge where you are right now. Where in your life are you showing up as the driver, as the passenger, or the person stuck in the trunk? You can't move seats until you admit where you're sitting. You don't need to be mean or judgy about it. Just acknowledge it as it is. Number 2, Make small choices. Don't try to reroute your entire life in one day. Start with one turn, one decision that you make fully with clarity and intention. What might it look like to get out of the trunk and just slide into the back seat? From there, what might it look like to move to the front passenger and then the driver's seat? And really try to get detailed with it. For example, in what specific ways do you feel like you are in the trunk at work? Maybe you feel like you have no idea what to do and have no idea how parts of your organization are interconnected. Maybe each day you just go in, put your head down, do your job, and go home. And that may be perfectly fine for you. There's no judgment here. But if you want to move up or get promoted, chances are good they're not going to promote someone who's sitting in the trunk. How might you become more in charge at work? You might start by paying more attention to the system-wide emails explaining the intentions of your organization. Maybe you could attend a town hall or other meetings and become actively engaged. You could start asking more questions, sharing your opinions, volunteering. You could get additional training in your role. Even if you don't use it yet, it would be helpful in the future. These are all ways of moving out of the trunk and having more say in your work life. You may never be in the driver's seat at work unless you become the CEO or own your own business, but you can certainly get out of the trunk and make some differences if you want. So be specific when thinking about the ways that you can take more ownership and responsibility in all areas of your life. And lastly, build resilience for mistakes. You will miss that exit. You will scratch or dent that car. These are the givens of driving and the givens of life. That's not failure. It's part of learning how to drive. The more experience you have, the more you will learn, and the more skillful you'll become. But if you're too afraid to get behind the wheel, then you will never be fully in charge of your life. Rather than seeing accidents as things that must be avoided at all costs, you could try to see them as necessary parts of life to learn. I truly believe we learn more from our pain than our joy. When you ask people what experiences of their lives taught them the most, they are almost always these supposed failures and our losses. Remember, responsibility isn't about perfection. It's about presence. It's about claiming your seat in the car of your life, no matter how bumpy the road gets. Thank you for joining me today on From Both Sides of the Couch. If this episode resonated with you, I would love it if you would share it with a friend or maybe give me a review. It goes a long way in helping my channel. If you'd like to dive deeper, you can visit me at my website, drlauriebruce.com. I will see you in the next episode.